Matt Dunn, Professor of Pediatric Hematology and Oncology Research from the University of Newcastle at Hunter Medical Research Institute. I'm a National Health and Medical Research Council investigator. I'm the Director of Brain Cancer Research at the Precision Medicine Research Program of the Hunter Medical Research Institute and leader of Pediatric Research at the Mark Hughes Foundation, the Centre for Brain Cancer Research. I'm a translational biomedical scientist and have a preclinical research group focused on pediatric cancers, particularly tumours of the brainstem, known as diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma, and also of hematological malignancies such as acute myeloid and acute lymphoblastic leukemias. So we focus on kids' cancers and the cancers that take more children than any other disease.
Yeah, unreal. Like, super important work to do, remarkably complex in my opinion. But what brings you to ARCS today? Like, what's the tie-in there?
I was invited to speak and share my journey. So not only do I lead a preclinical biomedical research group focused on pediatric cancers, but my daughter was diagnosed with a brainstem glioma back in 2018. At that time, my research group was focused on pediatric leukemia, and when Josephine was diagnosed just before she turned 3 with DIPG, I immediately added DIPG to my research focus. Started researching in real time. Kids with DIPG are given less than 12 months of survival post-diagnosis, and we have no effective therapies for the disease. And so in real time commenced my own research program, aided by my staff and students, and subsequently in the last 6 years and since Josie's diagnosed, we've started 2 clinical trials. We've discovered 3 drugs and combinations of therapies, and we've published more than 80 peer-reviewed papers in the field.
Wow, unreal. Like, such, the personal element, the drive and the passion there, I mean, that really comes through, and one that has impact, I imagine, then at a global scale in such a tricky area. So the tie-in with, this particular crowd here at ARCS, where we're bringing together all the points around drug discovery or diagnosis research and all the regulatory piece, how does that kind of tie in with what's happening here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting question, and one I didn't really understand until I just attended that plenary session.
Yeah.
In medicine and in regulatory aspects of medicine and drug delivery and drug handling, I think what we've done always is to base our data on what happens through a clinic and a patient response to a therapy, and we haven't really taken the considerations and the experiences of our patients into consideration very much. And I think over the last decade, I suppose, and thanks to Karen Woolley, who used to be the president of ARCS and continues to work in that patient advocacy role and linking that with clinical trials of drug development, there's much more of a focus on what happens to the patient rather than just what happens with the drug. And that experience is not only helping to improve our medicines, but also improve the journey of a patient receiving those medicines. And as we get more technologically savvy and there's more parents and patient advocacy groups starting, we're getting a lot of research done outside of the traditional means of research. Parents and patients are doing their own research, starting their own groups, starting their own advocacy organisations, and there's a lot of data being generated. And I think one thing I've learned today is that, that's important data. We try and capture it. But if there's a framework of how that data is collected and analysed and then used rather than just sit in the periphery, then as a community of drug developers and therapeutic and medicines developers, we can learn a lot and we can get to the better outcomes space, which is everybody's goal here.
Yeah.
More informed, seamlessly, and taking everyone's lived journey into consideration.
Yeah, there's something in that about, taking those really specific or personal stories and those shared perspectives in that kind of non-structured way, that to be able to then do something with the information, where sometimes it feels like if you're impacted as an individual by a diagnosis or medically in some way, that there's no real way to impact the kind of have an impact at scale. But if there's a way for us to take those stories, I guess, all those unique perspectives, but then to aggregate that at a point that can then have impact at, say, an industry level, I feel like that could be quite transformation. So I can see the vision there for sure. And then lastly, what would you hope then that perhaps people take away from ARCS? There's a variety of different sessions and the colliding of many different people in the ecosystem. From your observations in this only the first couple of hours, what people take away from this one?
Look, I'm hoping that, that conversation piece between all the stakeholders becomes more embedded and not seem to be an extra challenge, but actually helps to value add to the development space, the drug development space, integrating the research at the preclinical level through experiences in clinical trials, and then having families and parents and patients all part of that journey, then informing regulatory organisations in a more fluid and dynamic way. I think for the diseases where there is huge scientific and drug development that still needs to occur, in my space and in the cancers that we work on, it needs to happen quicker, because in Australia, every 2 weeks a kid's diagnosed with DIPG and every week diagnosed with leukemia. We need to make those inroads to better outcomes more quickly, and I don't think we can do it just as a research group or just as a clinical trialist or as a regulatory organisation or particularly as a family. All of those things need to work together, and we need to foster and support those things and learn from them and do it in a way that we can get data out of it and improve the journey for the next patients to come along.